Hi everybody, well welcome to Community Heartbeat. As we're in the middle of a COVID crisis, we thought we'd better put some videos together just to try and help you understand some of the aspects of defibrillators that we've unfortunately not been able to come out and speak to you about. So if you're sitting comfortably watching this and you've got your cup of tea to hand, then I think we can begin. What I'm going to do is talk about this in really 3 or 4 different sections, so hopefully it'll all make sense. First one is to talk about the legalities of defibrillators in the community. Second thing is we'll talk about a little bit about how heart works, so you understand what these actual defibrillators do. Number 3, we'll talk about the defibrillators themselves, and lastly we'll talk about how to do chest compressions and try to use chest compressions to save somebody's life. So, without much ado, let's talk about legal. Most people will come to us and say, can I be sued? What if I do something wrong when I'm trying to save a life? You don't need to worry. That person is clinically already dead. If they're in cardiac arrest, and cardiac arrest is a very simple expression which means exactly what it says. It means heart stopped. Cardiac arrest. Heart stopped. Okay, so that person is effectively dead. What you're trying to do is make them less dead. You're trying to bring them back to life. So actually, you can't make the situation any worse, and the law reflects that. There are 3 aspects of law that protect you. Number 1, you're going to phone 999, and under the terms of the NHS, if you phone 999 and somebody from the NHS, in this case the ambulance service, asks you to help in a rescue, then you are totally protected by all the assurances, by all the insurances, and by all the liability cover of the NHS. So always dial 999 first. Number 2, there's a thing called the SARA Act. So since April 2015, the SARA Act has protected everybody in the community to help somebody in a life-saving situation. So for example, the SARA Act stands for the Social Action Responsibility and Heroism Act. Social Action Responsibility and Heroism Act. It's like a Good Samaritan type bit of legislation. But what that says very simply is, providing you're doing your best, you're not trying to be a brain surgeon when you don't do any first aid, and you're trying to help somebody who's in a potentially life-saving situation, life-threatening situation, then the law protects you. The third element of law that protects you is the law over being sued. So if somebody wanted to sue you because they felt you hadn't done something correct, they would have to prove in a court of law that whatever you did made the situation worse than what its natural outcome would be. Therefore, what is the natural outcome? It's death. If you do nothing, that patient is going to die. All you can do is do something to try and stop them dying. Therefore, in law, you cannot ever be sued because you cannot be demonstrated for making the situation worse. There is nothing worse than death. So, from a legal aspect, you're covered by dialing 999, you're covered by the SARA Act, and you're covered by the fact that nobody can sue you anyway. So with all that amount of protection, why wouldn't you do something? Okay, the second aspect is to look at defibrillators. So there are 4 different defibrillators on the table in front of me. Now, the point is about defibrillators will only work if that person is in cardiac arrest. So I could put any one of these defibrillators on you watching, and this defibrillator will not work, provided, of course, you're alive. So, I'm making that assumption, of course. So, from that perspective, it's useful to understand why that happens. So the first thing to understand is the heart. The heart is about the size of your fist. Okay, it lives in the middle of your chest, beats away roughly once a second at rest, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Doesn't take time off, doesn't book a Ryanair flight from East Midlands Airport and then get it cancelled. It just does what it's designed to do, which is compress and then relax, and then compress and then relax, and then compress and relax. Each time it compresses, it pumps about 80 millilitres of blood out around the body. And with that blood is oxygen, and that oxygen is going to all parts of the body and the brain and elsewhere. So that's good. While the heart is doing this. Now, in a situation with cardiac arrest, the heart has stopped doing this, and it's actually stopped. But it doesn't quite go stop like that. What actually happens is it goes through a phase. It goes through a phase where it's quivering like a jelly. And when it's quivering like a jelly, it means that is in fibrillation. So what you're doing with these devices is to actually stop that fibrillation. You're trying to actually say to these heart cells that are fibrillating away, shaking away like jellies, just stop guys, hang on a moment, just stop. We're just going to take a rest, we're going to take a pause, and then what we're going to do is allow you all to start up naturally again. So defibrillators are actually heart stoppers. They're not heart restarters, they're heart stoppers. They're stopping the heart to allow it to reset. A bit like a band leader. So you've got a band leader at the front of all these people marching up and down with bands, and he's there with his stick. Okay? If he wasn't there, the band would be chaotic. They'd all be out of tune with each other. So what you're effectively doing is saying to the band, okay guys, stop. What we're going to do is we're going to start again, and we're going to actually play the music in time with each other. So a defibrillator stops the heart. Important point to remember. Now when the heart goes from doing this to quivering, it does it instantaneously. So if it does it instantaneously, certain things happen, and you can see those things. So the patient will collapse, they'll go unresponsive, unconscious, they'll have no signs of breathing, and they probably would have gone a funny colour, particularly in their lips, and their face will have drained of blood, so looking greyish, bluish. And if those four characteristics are there, happened fast, no signs of breathing, gone a funny colour, okay, and totally unconscious and unresponsive, that person is probably in a cardiac arrest situation. Now there are other conditions which resemble cardiac arrest, and sometimes a respiratory arrest may do it, but if you think about the common ones where people collapse, fainting, diabetic, that sort of thing, okay, in a diabetic, if they collapse, okay, they're still breathing, their faces are still pink, and if you smell their breath, they're very sweet, and if you give them sugar, they'll wake up again. Somebody who's collapsed because they fainted, it's a nice hot summer's day, that's because their blood pressure has gone through the floor. They've keeled over because their heart says it's much easier to pump horizontally than vertically. Once they're on the floor, they go pink in the face, they're obviously still breathing, and if you threaten to pinch their Tom winnings because it was a village fete, they'd probably wake up very quickly. And you help them by raising their legs, because that pulls the blood back down to the head again. So that's good. But each of those takes time. A diabetic doesn't just go snap and faint. Somebody doesn't just on a hot day faint. There are signs beforehand. So a faint and a diabetic attack will take 15-20 minutes to go on. They'll give you signs, they'll give you hints as to what's actually happening. Cardiac arrest is different. You stand up, take a pace, boom, you're over on the floor within the space of a heartbeat. So it's fast, the person becomes unresponsive, no signs of breathing or difficulty in breathing or even a gurgly type breathing in the throat, and they lose all the colour in their face. That's cardiac arrest. Okay, so having decided the person's in cardiac arrest, what do we do? Well, the very first thing we're going to do is chest compressions, and we'll come on in a separate session to look at chest compressions. But then we're going to use a defibrillator. All defibrillators work in basically the same way, and they do it by analysing what's going on in the heart, and having analysed what's going on in the heart, then they'll actually make a decision as to whether to give that patient a shock of electricity or not. Okay, so they'll all do that. Some do it in different ways, so this one only gives audio instructions. You switch it on, and it just plays audio.
Call for help.
Okay,
follow instructions to apply pads. Remove powering off.
Very easy to understand because it talks to you. This one also talks to you. These two work slightly differently because these two have both got television screens. So they not only talk to you, but they actually show you. So the vast majority of you, probably if you've been working with us, will have one of these two types of machine. So again, when you switch them on, they're easy to switch on, but then...
Call for help. Follow instructions to apply pads. Remove clothing from patient's chest.
Yeah, so you get the idea.
Locate pads package in back of a powering off.
And similarly this one, which is called the Zoll, if I switch that on, the screen lights up, it does a quick check, and then it starts speaking.
Unit OK.
Open the airway. Check breathing. Adult patient selected. If the patient is a child, press the child button.
So this is the child button here. If I press
remove the pad package. Child patient selected.
And I'll switch that one off.
Unit powering off.
So in both of these two, they show you visuals and they talk to you In these two, they just talk to you. In a stressful situation, you may not be listening to what you're being told, so the visualization is really good. And in the case of this one, it actually not only talks to you and shows you, but it also gives you feedback from the chest compressions as well, so really top of the range. But they all work in the same way. They'll analyse, they'll listen to what's going on inside, and they will decide whether that person needs a shock or not. Not you, they will decide. So these are very, very safe equipment to use. In a minute, we're going to show you a little video that was produced by the Chest, Heart and Stroke Association of Scotland. It's all about what to do in a rescue, the doctor's ABCD, how to do chest compressions and how to use a defibrillator. Well worth watching.
What you have to remember is the doctor's ABC. D is for danger. First, look around carefully to make sure the area is safe for yourself and others before approaching. R is for response. Shake them gently by the shoulders and ask them loudly, "Are you all right?" If there is no response, you need to. S. Shout for help, as any assistance will be helpful. A is for airway. Gently tilt the head back like this to open up the airway. B is for breathing. Look, listen, and feel for signs of normal breathing. Look for normal chest movements. Listen for normal breathing sounds. And try to feel their breath against your face. Do this for no more than 10 seconds. If there is no sign of breathing, or if they are breathing in an unusual, noisy way, we need to start CPR. First, make sure that an ambulance is on its way. If you have someone with you, ask them to make the call. Putting the phone on speaker mode is useful as the ambulance service can talk you through the steps. C is for circulation. Circulation means the flow of blood around the body, and when the heart stops pumping, we need to take over this role by pushing down hard and fast on the chest. Start by placing the heel of one hand at the centre of the person's chest and interlock your fingers like this. With arms straightened, press down hard and fast, letting the chest come back up fully each time. Fast means around 2 times every second. And hard means that the chest needs to go down by about 5 centimetres. This might sound a lot, but you do need to push hard for it to be effective. If you have been trained, you can give 2 rescue breaths after every 30 compressions, as this helps provide some oxygen. However, if you have not been trained or are not comfortable, just keep going with hands-only continuous chest compressions. If someone else is with you, swap over if you begin to feel tired, and don't stop until either a health professional takes over or the person is definitely breathing normally. Sometimes we can add another step. D. D is for defibrillation, which is about delivering a shock to restart the heartbeat. Some public areas and workplaces have an easy-to-use defibrillator on site called an automatic external defibrillator, or AED. Automatic means that it is the machine that decides what to do, so you can't go wrong, and it even talks you through the steps. If there is no AED available, keep going with CPR until the ambulance arrives. That's it. So to recap, remember doctor's ABC. And if you have it, D. That's D for danger, R for response, S, shout for help, A for airway, B for breathing, C for circulation, and D for defibrillation.
Hello, we've now moved on to talking about chest compressions. They're not difficult to do, as you saw in that little video by the Chest, Heart and Stroke Association of Scotland, but there are a couple of things that might be useful to know. Number one is, where do you position your hands? Well, that's easy. You can either guess, you could follow around the base of your ribs to the knobbly bit here, stick 2 fingers on the knobbly bit and then rest your hand on top. That works. Another way that works is halfway between the nipples. But the easiest one for people to use is lift up your arm, put your hand underneath the arm, and then just move your hand across, and it'll be in the right position to do chest compressions. So hand in the middle of the chest, other hand on top, elbows straight, and get right above the patient so you can actually press down really hard. Now, if you remember, Before, we talked about the heart pumps naturally at 1 times a second, and it pumps out about 80 millilitres of blood. When you're doing chest compressions, you're not pumping as hard as the heart does naturally, so actually the heart only pumps out about 40 millilitres of blood. So in order to get the output up to a level that is actually natural for the body, you actually go faster. So instead of 1 times a second, you go 2 times a second. So it's 100 to 120 times a minute pressing down on the chest. Hand on the chest, hand on top, elbows straight, shoulders right the way down, pushing, using your body weight to really push down the heart on the chest. Not difficult to do, a little bit tiring to do. So, to help you, sing a song to give you the rhythm. You could use Staying Alive, that's fine. Da 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 da, shh, 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 if you want to. Personally, I prefer the old favourite, Nelly the Elephant. Okay, Nelly the Elephant packs her trunk and says goodbye to the circus. Off she roams, etc. The nice thing about Nelly the Elephant is it's 15 beats. One verse is 15 beats. So it means that actually you only have to count up to 7 to get to 120, which is good. There are other tunes, the Archers tunes, so those of you who are favourites of the Radio 4 serial. Da 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 da. Happy Birthday does it. Happy birthday to me. So there are lots of tunes you can actually do, but what you've got to remember is hand in the middle of the chest, other hand on top, elbows dead straight, shoulders right over, and start pressing down that body. There are 3 grips you can use. You can use the finger interlocking, that works very well. You could rest your hand on top, that works well. Or you can use what's called the watch strap technique, where your thumb and your first finger wrap around just underneath the knuckle, just there. Any of those 3 grips are fine. Hi there. So, finally, what we're going to do is we're going to show you some of the ways each of these defibrillators actually works. So some little short videos to show you when you switch them on what actually happens, so you get an idea. Not all of you have the same machine. Some of you will have this one, some of you have the green device, some of you may have orange devices. It doesn't matter. At least this will give you an idea of how these machines actually work. So, thank you for listening. Very much appreciated. Thank you also to the Chest, Heart and Stroke Association of Scotland for use of their video in the mid part of this presentation. And I hope you never actually use these defibrillators, but at least you've got them. Look after them. They do need to be checked weekly, no more than a month apart between checks. They are medical devices. Treat them with respect, and they will save lives. So, good luck.
Call for help. Follow instructions to apply pads. Remove clothing from patient's chest. Locate pads package in back of AED. Tear open pads package. Peel adhesive pads from blue liner. Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown. Call for help. Follow instructions to apply pads. Remove clothing from patient's chest. Locate pads package in back of AED. Tear open pads package. Peel adhesive pads from blue liner. Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown. Remove clothing, powering off. Demo mode. Call for help. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient. Stand clear. Shock advised. Charging. Press flashing shock button. Press flashing shock. Shock 1 delivered. It is safe to touch the patient. Begin CPR now. Give compressions. Continue. Continue for 1 minute 45 seconds. Continue. Place hands. Compress chest. Press. Press. Continue. Continue for 1 minute 15 seconds. Powering off.
Unit OK. Open the airway. Check breathing. Adult patient selected. If the patient is a child, press the child button. Remove the pad package. Child patient selected. Completely remove the child's shirt, cutting or tearing if needed. Adult patient selected. Cut or tear clothing to expose the patient's bare chest. Open pad package. Attach pads to the patient's bare chest. Attach pads to the patient's bare chest. Don't touch the patient. Analyzing. Shock advised. Don't touch the patient. Press the flashing shock button. Don't touch the patient. Shock delivered. Start CPR. Push to match the tone. Continue CPR. Push harder. Push harder. Good compressions.